Officials say the Saudi campaign was quickly planned, catching top U.S. military commanders off guard.
General Austin, when were you told by the Saudis that they were going to take military action in Yemen?
Sir, I had a conversation with the Chad right before they took action, so it was shortly before.
Before they took action?
Yes, sir.
That's very interesting.
The White House has already committed significant assistance. The U.S. military is helping the Saudis plan bombing missions over Yemen, providing targeting intelligence from satellites overhead, and making AWACS surveillance planes and aerial refueling aircraft available as well. The general says he doesn't know if it will all work.
I don't currently know the specific goals and objectives of the Saudi campaign, and I'd have to know that to be able to assess the likelihood of success.
The U.S. military involvement as sensitive as it gets. Saudi Arabia is backing beleaguered Yemeni President Hadi, who has fled his country. The rebels are backed by Iran. The U.S. worries terror groups will exploit the chaos.
There's a lot at stake here, particularly with Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and ISIS, both active in Yemen. But let's face the facts. The U.S. is involved now in a proxy war between the Saudis and the Iranians.
Iran condemning the intervention.
It's a very dangerous situation, and we advise against any escalation because we believe that any interference in Yemen will simply lead to further loss of human life.
Now, the Saudi Arabia and the Gulf allies, in the U.S. view, are very nervous about Iran's growing influence in the region. They see Iran spreading across the area. That may be one reason they are undertaking some of this, but the U.S. very definitely stepping into it, the Pentagon offering help to the Saudis and help to the Yemenis. What everyone is watching for right now is what will Iran's further reaction be?
What is Saudi Arabia's biggest concern?
Well, Yemen is right on its border, and so what the Saudis, I think, are concerned about is two big things. One is instability and jihadi groups coming, infecting the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the other is the Houthis gaining strength and maybe gaining power in Yemen. The Houthis are, as you put it, supposedly backed by Iran. It's not entirely clear how much Iranian influence there is. What is clear is that the Saudis perceive a Shia government in Yemen as a big problem. The Saudis are hardcore Sunni, and they tend to be very anti-Shia. So you have religious stuff going on, but you also have this regional power game between Saudi Arabia on the one hand and Iran on the other. It's playing itself out in Syria, now it's playing itself out in Yemen.
Okay, because as I was looking, if we can throw the map back up just quickly, I'm a visual person, it helps me understand when I see Saudi Arabia and then you see the sliver of Yemen and you realize that Saudi Arabia doesn't want the Iranian-backed Houthis and essentially knocking on their doorstep right there on the border. That, you were telling me, is the bigger concern over any presence of ISIS, of AQAP.
I think that's right. I mean, the presence of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they're always worried about chaotic badlands where jihadis may come to power. The real concern, this is why this is the first time the Saudis have initiated airstrikes, is they don't want a Shia government in Yemen. Just as, if you remember, what was the last time the Saudis used military force to help the government of Bahrain, which is a Sunni minority government, make sure that you didn't have the majority, which is the Shia, come to power. So both times the Saudis have used military power in the last few years, it has been to prevent a Shia government from becoming part of their neighborhood.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia launched military operations in Yemen. The objective is to defend the legitimate government of President Hadi from the takeover attempts by the Houthi militias in Yemen. The use of force is always the last resort, and it is with great reluctance that we took this step along with our partners in the GCC countries, as well as outside of the GCC countries. We have a coalition of over 10 countries that will participate in these operations to prevent Yemen from falling at the hands of the Houthis. We hope that the wisdom will prevail among the Houthis and that they will become part of the political process rather than continue their radical approach to try to take over Yemen and destroy it. This decision did not come lightly, and this decision was thought out very deeply, and we have consulted very closely and very intensely with many of our allies and partners around the world, and in particular the United States. We have had very fruitful and very productive discussions with the U.S., and we are very pleased with the outcome of those discussions. And I would like to just leave it at this and have you talk to our American friends about the details of how they see it from their side. But overall, we are extremely pleased and extremely appreciative of the support that we have received from our allies around the world, and in particular from the United States.
The Saudis are taking this very seriously, and they're building a coalition that they're going to go in there and they're going to fix this. They've committed to restore the legitimate government of Yemen. That would be President Al-Hadi. It's going to take that kind of firepower to do this. I've been monitoring the Arab press, and there's already a war of words going on between Iran and all these Arab states. So it's a big operation.
So we've had these reports of these airstrikes. We've been speaking to people in Sanaa talking about massive explosions rocking not just the capital but a number of cities across Yemen. So we're clearly not just talking about airstrikes here. I mean, if you're getting 150,000 ground forces ready, you're enlisting the support of Pakistan, Jordan, Sudan, as others. This is going to go on for weeks?
Oh, easily. This is just beginning. The airstrikes will be the kickoff of the campaign. They'll want to knock down the air defenses and create a corridor with which they can move their troops in there. But you're right. This is going to be a major operation. It's going to take time to get the troops there. And the planning for this has been going on for some time, because if you look at all the aircraft that were involved in this and the targets that they hit, this isn't something they decided to do yesterday. And as we talked earlier, the Saudis don't have the intelligence and reconnaissance capability to determine all of these targets. They've had to have some help, and I think it probably came from us.
Okay, let's put this in the context of what a lot of people here can understand. When we talk about an invasion force of 150,000 plus troops, compare this to the U.S. invasion of Iraq.
Well, the U.S. invasion of Iraq had, the 2003 invasion had about 250,000 troops. We're looking at smaller numbers here, but then you're looking at a smaller defense force too. The Houthis are not the Iraqi army, so and Yemen is not Iraq. So difficult terrain, hard to do. But these are Arab troops that are familiar with this environment, and I think 150,000 troops is about the right number.
Okay, so if we look at this operation, it is the first sort of major decision taken by the new king in Saudi. We know the Saudis have absolutely zero desire to occupy Yemen. They could have done it in the past. They have avoided that place at great pains. So now that they're prepared to do this, what does that tell you about the threat that they fear is coming clearly not just from the Houthi rebels, but also from Iran?
Exactly, and they're looking at they perceive this as a threat from the Iranians. They look at the Houthis as nothing more than a proxy Iranian force, just like we can look at Hezbollah as a proxy Iranian force in southern Lebanon. So they're looking at this. They feel there's a threat, and they're going to do this before the situation gets worse. What they do not want is an Iranian-run state on their southern border, because they already feel they've got enough problems on their northern border. What with the Iranians exercising a lot of power in Beirut, in Damascus, in Baghdad, and now with the Houthis in Yemen. It's a real problem for them, and you got to give the Saudis credit. They perceive a threat, and they're acting on it.
We have these reports too that Pakistan, Jordan and Sudan are also willing to participate in ground offensives, and just go over those countries again: Egypt, Morocco, Jordan, Sudan, Kuwait, UAE, Qatar and Bahrain contributing fighter jets into the air campaign. This is a big coalition, and you touched on it before. This just didn't happen overnight. So this coalition building has been going on for some time, and we didn't know about it.
Well, we didn't publicly know about it. I suspect that we did know about it because, as I said, I don't think the Saudis or any of those air forces you mentioned have the intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities to develop all of those targets. I looked at the targets that were hit, and these are the targets you would want to hit. If I was an air campaign planner, this is what I would hit. All of those military installations around Sanaa, the special forces down in Taiz, and that El Aden Air Base down where the U.S. Special Forces were. So this is a well-executed first night of an air campaign.
Okay, so they're talking about they want basically to get the Houthis to the negotiating table so they can work out some way to restore the legitimate government of Yemen. That seems to me completely bogus. This to me looks like an occupation of Yemen. Get rid of the Houthi rebels, get rid of the Iranian influence, but that then leaves the question of Al-Qaeda in Yemen, in the Arabian Peninsula, and also